What is up, listening faithful? Welcome back to another episode of the Keystone Chronicles podcast. With us this week, the Hungry Huntsman himself, Mr. Gunnar Emberg. Guys, this episode was a little bit for me, I believe, because I've been following Gunnar for a while now, and the plates that he's making will make your mouth water. Guys, check him out over at the Hungry Huntsman. The shit he's doing is really, really cool if you are into cooking wild game like I am. The background on this fella is pretty good, man. He's got a crazy story going, and I think you really enjoy the conversation that we get into. He's from the a.k.a. National Forest area up there in northern Pennsylvania. He was a combat vet here. He's a forest foraging wild game cooking machine. He has his own line of spice. Check that out. This episode, we go over thoughts of an entrepreneur, some different types of recipes that he likes to cook, some ways to butcher or look at wild game, and maybe from a different scope of view that some of us are used to. And then, of course, you know, I had to pick his brain on some of the things that we do here in Pennsylvania and things that we could change or things that we really love. I want to thank Gunnar for coming through. Really appreciated the conversation with him. Guys, don't be afraid to reach out to him. He's got so much going for him. And if you guys have a camp somewhere and you're looking for a wild game chef, well, by golly, you found him. So, guys, you know how it always goes. Rate, comment, subscribe. Really helps the show moving forward. Gunnar, thank you so much for coming through. And, guys, I want to remind you, get out there and shoot your damn bow. All right, it's time to start getting ready for the season. Some of you may have your cameras out, and you may be working out, getting in a little better shape than you were. Let's do it, man. Let's push it moving forward. Let's get ready for this deer season coming up. I think that I got a little bit of fishing left in me, not too long, and it's going to be full bore there out in the woods doing some scouting. So here we go. Appreciate it, guys.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, got a great show lined up for you here tonight. I've been chasing this fella around for a little bit, and the stars have aligned. Mr. Gunnar Emberg, how are you, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, man. Good, man. What a hell of a day I had. Honest to God, I was at work for 13 hours, and I came home. I ate some Chinese. I had some General Tso's, or as a kid likes to call it, the General Toes. And I'm ready to rock and roll, brother. We were chatting a little bit before we come on, and before we go any further, man, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm Gunnar Emberg. Grew up here in Pennsylvania in the a.k.a. National Forest region. Grew up hunting, fishing, everything like that. Joined the Navy right out of high school and made my way back here, surprisingly. Unlike 90% of the kids that went to my school, they're like, I can't wait to leave here. And here I am. I love it. I'll never leave. I always look forward to coming home. And, through the course of my whole life, I have developed my own kind of persona, per se, that is the Hungry Huntsman, which is a wild game chef that I try to, teach people that, hey, you can do these high-end dishes. You can use wild game at home really simply. It's not that hard to do these dishes that you see on TV,
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely, man.
So.
Yeah. The shit that you're doing is awesome, brother. I love it. I think that I think more people can look up to what you're doing and kind of take that path, because even like me, myself, I love cooking. And when it comes to wild game, like that's all I really want to eat. We buy very, very little meat, now don't get me wrong. I'm a sucker for steaks and stuff, and I'll buy a couple pounds of beef a year and all that. But when it comes to venison, that's the staple of this household, and that's what the whole Petnetti family's built on. I don't think without venison that we'd even be around, to be honest. But
oh yeah, yep.
So you started your journey as being a chef, but way back before that, man, you have a really cool story, and I really want to hear some more of it. So
Yeah.
Let's talk like. You going into high school, were you an outdoorsman for then? Did you have any mentors that kind of showed you the way? Like, kind of how was your upbringing?
So our we have a family camp here in the A&F, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've had that since 1954. It is tradition where, opening day rifle, there's 15, 20 people at camp. We're all family.
Yeah.
We hunt, first
sure.
day, first 2 days or something like that. And then that's about it. That's about all I did growing up. maybe go up and I'd fish opening day, but I didn't really care. If my cousins wanted to take me out turkey hunting or something, yeah, I'd go, but nothing too crazy. And then, like, yeah, I liked being outside and stuff, but I was your typical kind of redneck teenager in a way. I'd like four wheeling all over the place, wrecking my truck everywhere and everything like that. And then,
Right, right.
me being me too and being influenced by my dad, we're very strong minded and we're very, we don't like to go with the grain. We like to go against it, right? So, all my buddies going to college, I was like, man, if I go to college, like, it's not going to work out well for me.
Right.
So, I joined the Navy right out of high school. Like 3 weeks after I graduated, I was in Chicago for boot camp, and
Yep.
um, went through that, became a corpsman, which is essentially a combat medic. Did that for 5 years, and I got out and everything. But I think, what was it? I left 2012, got to my first command in 2013, and one of my buddies who was my boss at the time, he's one of my best friends to this day. Like I talk to him regularly all the time. He was like, "Hey man, like I'm going to the bow shop down the road. Like, do you want to go?" He's like, "I know you like hunting and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Like I have boot camp money. Like screw it. Yeah, I'll buy a bow, And
Yep.
I fell in love with it there, right? And
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing either, right?
Sweet.
So me being me too, my mind is always naturally going and everything. And I was like, okay, well, how do I learn about archery, right? Started looking into stuff, and this was, back before Dudley was huge and everything like that. Like I was watching his videos in 2013, 2014, and learning all of this stuff and looking at the Ashby files and everything like that. And
Right.
I was shooting my bow at the time, and mind you, I've only been shooting archery for 2, 3 months at the time. I was drilling targets out at 80 yards, and I'm like, man, like like what happened here? Like, where did this click? Like, I never done this in my life. How did this click, right? And
Right.
just kind of continued from there. It kind of tapered off towards the end. Got into a bunch of military stuff where like I couldn't really hunt all the time and everything like that, so I kind of gave it up for a bit and got out. And I took like the whole year before I got out to decide, like, what do I want to do? I'm not staying in the military, but like, do I get a job? Do I go to college? What do I want to do?
Right.
Decided, okay, I'll go to college here. I'll give that a shot. Everybody does it, whatever. It's in my head at the time. I'm like, oh, that's what you need to have a good job, yada, yada, yada. And
Mm.
turns out that is not the case at all. But
Mhm.
got out and I was like, I want to be outside though. I love being outside. So I went for environmental science, hated it because I was gonna have to do like analytical calculus and stuff, and that's not me. Like I love math, but like when I got to write it on a piece of paper, I'm not. No, thank you.
Mhm. Yep.
So transferred campuses to Penn State Du Bois actually, and went for their wildlife program. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Love wildlife, everything like that. Nope. Turns out I hated that too. It was more research, and a lot of the beliefs that I have are very much like I want to be one with nature. I want to be a part of nature. I don't want to mess with it at all. Like that's not my what's the word I'm looking
It's
for
not your
here?
forte.
Not necessarily forte, but it's not my place
Okay.
to go and mess with nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
see
I
what you're
should be
saying.
a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I was like, well, I had a dendrology course where I learned on my trees. Like, I love that stuff because that actually helps nature and doesn't necessarily interfere with it directly one on one. That I can, I'm not going out and tackling the deer and putting a sock over its head to put a collar on it.
Yeah.
And so ended up working a forestry internship. I was like, all right, I like this. I'll get a job. And Kenny Kane, I don't know if you've heard of him either. He's been on Bo's podcast and stuff. So he actually hired me. I went to high school with him. Um, he hired me for a little bit, and then I left for the Forest Service. That wasn't my gig either, and ended up going with this brewery that I was at for a while.
Uh-huh.
And all the while, though, I'm doing research. I'm building bows. I'm starting to learn how to build my own arrows and all of this, tune my bows and everything. And really, like in college, honest to God, man, I think I spent 10, 11 grand on Sika gear to, like
Right.
in my head too. I'm like, okay, I don't need this to hunt better, but if I have the gear,
Yep.
then it lets me know that I'm the failure and not the gear, you
You
know?
make a great point. Yeah.
And that's all of my stuff is very high end because of that, because
Yeah.
if I know that it's right, then I'm the only variable here that can be wrong, right?
Nice. Yeah. Yep. For sure.
So going through all of that and really, really, start really falling in love with hunting and everything. Became field staff for Serious Archery Products at one point. Still with them today, and I ended up having a buddy, the buddy I was talking about, prior to us recording, who
Mm-hmm.
is my competition barbecue guy. He worked with me there too. He loved craft beer too. So, we got to talking and stuff, and he's like, man, like it's really not that hard to cook for a bunch of people. All you have to do is scale your recipes up and get a bigger dish. And I was like, okay. So I saw Bo put out his first like mountain buck scouting camp.
Yeah.
I think it was 2022 he put that out, and I reached out to him. I kind of knew him here and there from I grew up a town over from him. We kind of have some family connections and stuff. And I reached out and I was like, hey, let me come cook it. At least lunch.
Right.
Hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever it is, I don't care. Pay for the food. I don't even care if I get paid, but I want to start. I want to try this. I want to get my name out there. And Bo let me come and do it, and then he had me cook a dinner for the instructors that night as well. And apparently, I did so good that like Bo came up and paid me an extra $150 after this too.
Nice.
He was like, "Damn, like that was too good not to pay you more." And
That's awesome.
I went back to the brewery and I was like, "Hey, like this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life, and that's it. Like I'm done." So left there, went to in my mind too. I'm like, "All right, what can I do that will further my career, teach me a skill or something, right?" Half a block down the road is a very famous butcher shop in PA called Bell's Meat and Poultry, and I grew up with the guys that run it. Like, they were some of my best friends growing up, and I was like, I popped in one day because I was getting lunch or whatever, and like, talking to him, and somehow the topic of a job came up, and he's like, well, I might as well just hire you right now. And I walk out of there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe, like, let's give it a shot. So I shot him a text, and that was it. I started right then and there pretty much. Went through that for a whole year, and now I'm on my own, cooking, doing my rub stuff, putting out content and everything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, you're kicking ass, man. I'm telling you. And I want to point something out that you said earlier, and this will probably make sense to you. But you said, like myself, my mind's always racing, and I have a correlation between people that just can't stop, and they're always thinking further and thinking further, and all of my friends and the people that I know that have that kind of mindset are an entrepreneur of some kind
Right.
or some form, and that's just, I think that that's just a testament to what entrepreneurs are. And there's a couple episodes I've done on this with other entrepreneurs, and I'm telling you, you'll go back and you'll listen, the same thing is said. And it's no different for me. I've been a DJ for 16 years, and it's the same thing. My
Yeah.
mind's always racing. I'm always looking for the next. How can I make this better? Or should I try to go down this road and try this out, or should I try this out? And I,
Oh yeah.
they're always trying new things, and
Yep.
it's the way that it is for an entrepreneur, I believe. And then, like we were talking on before, what's better than waking up on a frost morning and not having to go to work and parking your ass in the truck seat and driving to the hunting spot?
Exactly, man. And that, like my schedule right now, I have it set to where I work 4 days a week. I have Friday through Sunday off, and you know, half ago I worked Friday through Tuesday. I had Wednesday, Thursday off, and I'm like, this sucks. I can't do anything on weekends. And now it's like, I can do whatever the hell I want,
Right.
and I can still make money doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, man. You're living it.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. It's awesome, man. And I don't even want to say I'm jealous, because I could always go down that road myself. Um,
Oh
j-
yeah.
just the stars are not aligned for me in that direction yet at least. If that's a plan I ever want to make, I'll go
Yeah.
down that road. But you grew up in the Allegheny National Forest, and man, it's awesome that you wanted to go back there and you love being there, because I'm in the same boat. I think Pennsylvania is an awesome state for outdoorsmen to live in. I
Oh
have
yeah.
had experience in multiple other states, and I'm not saying that we're better than anyone else, but this is a great place to live if you're an outdoorsman. You know, we have top-notch trout fishing. I mean, top of the food chain.
Oh yeah.
We have great deer, and I actually gave a shout out to him just on the other episode the other day, but I'm gonna give another shout out, and that is a lot to do with Dr. Gary Alt and what he did with the antler restrictions. As much
Absolutely.
as imagine the freaking death threats, man. Imagine the
Oh,
death.
I know.
You know what I'm
I know.
saying? And it's wild because even like when I was growing up in the family I was raised in, it was like, ah, son of a bitch,
Yep.
and that's what you thought, and that's what you were taught, and then when you seen them work, it was like, dude, we got some really nice bucks coming out of Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, it's starting to get insane too, and
Hmm.
just with the circles I run in too, I'm seeing more and more elite level hunters, like the guys that you kind of worship on, social media, or the guys you would wait in line to meet and stuff like that.
Right.
They're starting to hunt Pennsylvania because not a lot of people know about it yet. And
I,
it is getting, yeah, I mean, they're killing, regularly 140, 150, 160-inch deer just right out my back door sometimes.
I yes, I've seen some pictures, and I have some guys slotted for some episodes later that have killed some giant deer up that way, and
Yeah.
the thing is, it's not just up that way anymore, and
No,
um,
yeah.
I would say as you get west of like the Harrisburg area,
Hmm.
I don't want to spot. I don't want to put stuff in the spotlight too much, but if you are taking notice, the soil gets a little bit better
Oh, yeah.
as you get out that way, and man, there's just some hammers coming out of PA, man, and it's exciting. And the other thing I want to say is a lot of guys just get mad about like non-resident hunting and stuff, but I'm telling you guys, we need to welcome that stuff too, because
Yeah.
the amount of revenue, and especially like for you, like if you're gonna put something together for hunters, and this guy has a camp somewhere or something, and he does a game feed, and he has Gunnar come and feed everybody, like, hell yeah, we want to open our arms to other people from other states and tell them, hey, come up, we'll host your ass, and we'll take your money too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. And I was just I wrote an article about the, I guess you could say, blunder of this year's license sales for
Hmm.
PGC.
Hmm.
And I was doing a little bit of number crunching and everything too on, average license sales and stuff like that. And I think within the last 10, 11 years, we average right around 900,000 license sales per year. And only about 50,000 of those on average, 50 to 55 on average, are non-resident.
Right.
And it's like there's, more people in 2 blocks of Pittsburgh than that. And everybody's kind of complaining about them, how they're coming in to hunt this land and stuff. And it's like that, not at all. Like it's not really a big deal. There's a lot fewer than you think that are actually coming. They just all kind of congregate to one area because it's all public land.
Yep. No, you hit it right on the head, man, and that's the beauty of Pennsylvania, though, man. We have so much freaking land, and that's why I don't understand. I'll see people get online and be like, I don't have nowhere to hunt.
Right.
And I'm like, well, it's not that nobody wants to help you. Like, I'm all for helping you. Like, you sure as hell ain't gonna hunt my land because that's sacred ground. But
Right.
but I know of land that you can hunt, and everybody for some reason thinks that private land. Oh, you gotta hunt private land. You gotta hunt private land, and that's just not the case. Like, I'm not
No.
saying that it's easier or it's not easier because some private land that I hunt, I think it's harder than hunting the game lands, to be honest with you,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
because of the pressure, and I don't. We have so many game lands, and not just game lands, public lands. Like Allegheny National Forest. I mean, you can get lost in there, and
Oh, yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
it's really wild to even be able to say that for Pennsylvania. When you get out west and shit, yeah, of course, there's no roads for miles and miles and miles. But I want to say I read something, and it said how many miles up in Allegheny National Forest is a certain spot to a certain spot that you can go without hitting a road, and that's really impressive for Allegheny National Forest because
Oh, especially for Pennsylvania too, which I think we're considered pretty high up there in population density per se,
hmm
just with like how many votes we get per year, or for elections and stuff like that. Like we're pretty up there, right?
yeah, for
Because
sure.
we have Erie, Philly, Altoona, Reading, and all that stuff, and Pittsburgh and stuff. But once you leave those areas, there's nothing.
Yep.
You know, like it's very woods and everything like that. And I had an old buddy of mine, kind of family at this point, pretty much, and he's now since passed. He reloaded all my guns for me and everything, and very old school. Like I attribute him kind of to Fred Bear, right? Like that's who this guy kind of was to me, right? And he was telling me at one point, like way back in the 70s and 80s and stuff, he's like, you had these yeah conservationist groups that would come in and be like, oh, like you're cutting all the trees down and look at all these clear cuts and stuff, and they would come up here and change their mind because there's like, oh, you that's all you cut compared to I haven't not seen a tree in 2 days, you know, like it's nothing but forest up here at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And dude, that's what's wild about everything too, because y- people, for some reason, man, I don't understand how people aren't educated enough on the fact that like we we need to be open to them cutting the forest, right? Because I see a lot of guys. Well, they went up and they freaking cleared cut everything, and
Yeah.
now we ain't gonna have no deer, or
Right.
you know what I mean. And then you try to explain to them like that's not what's going on, just so you know, or
No.
they're burning the forest down. Well, like,
Yeah.
there's a reason. I promise. There's a reason behind all this, and
Oh, absolutely. That's a
or
lot of go ahead.
or a lot of guys, like the doe hunting. That's such a hot topic, like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna shoot all the does. And listen, there's a reason why we're shooting the does, right? And whether people want to believe it or not, you can have too many does, and what happens is they fucking eat everything, and they
Right.
can't live no more because there's nothing to eat, and they die of starvation. They'll kill off the bucks because there's just
Exactly.
nothing to eat,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
they can decimate a forest, man. I mean, it's proven. And that's the difference between now and then, because people used to think, and I remember the 3 day doe.
Yeah.
We would go out, man, and see doe and doe. I mean, like there was herds of 40, 50 deer, and you'd see 40 to 50 doe, and then you'd see 3 to 4 bucks behind the doe. But you're talking a 4 point, a 3 point, maybe a 6 point. Like an 8 point was a very coveted deer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there, yeah, don't get me wrong, guys got 10 points and 12 points and stuff like that in certain areas, but like, you know, if dad was bringing home a 6 point, like, I still look at those antlers to this day, and I'm like, I remember those days. That was, you know, the days of, oh, I got my buck, if you remember what I'm saying.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but now it's a different game, man, and things have changed. And yeah, we may not see the amount of deer that we used to see, and I understand that. I was raised on that and blessed to see the amount of deer I did, but at the same time, now you see 6 doe and you see 3 bucks, and two of them are probably shooters, and that's just the trade off that you make for a better deer population.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's it's insane too to think, you know, a lot of these guys are, you know, all the clear cuts and everything like that. And it's like, listen, the timber industry in Pennsylvania, I believe last I heard was a $4 billion industry a year. We are the largest hardwood manufacturer in the entire country at this point.
Yeah.
And we kind of have to help control the deer population to fund that, you know. And that here's the thing too is, okay, these guys that are bitching about that, they just built a brand new garage. Well, where did that lumber come from?
Right.
You know, where did all of that stuff come from? Probably somewhere in Pennsylvania at this point, you
Yeah.
know. Say you have tongue and groove floors, that probably came from Pennsylvania, you
Right.
know. And it's these guys don't realize that listen, there's a trade-off that you have to have happen. Yeah, you can have nice floors and you can build your house and you can build a garage, but you might not see 40 deer a year. You're still going to see deer if you know how to hunt, and
Hmm.
you don't hunt like you're lazy. You're going to put the work in, but there's a trade-off that has to happen, and a lot of these older generation hunters are starting to get pissed off about that, and that's just nature of the beast with those guys.
Yep. Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. And like we were talking about them doing the clear cuts and stuff, and I just I really wish people understood like what that does for a deer herd, and when it's done right. The
Oh
only
yeah.
thing that I have seen that maybe possibly hurt is possibly the turkeys. And the only reason is like, I've been told that they'll get in that, and then when the predators get in there, they can't get up in the air quick enough to get away from a predator because the cover's so heavy above them.
Oh yeah, and we kind of have a little bit of a problem with turkey and PA. However, the amount of species that these clear cuts help as well, not just deer, but your small game species, your rabbit, your
Right.
squirrel, your weasels, your minks, your fishers, everything like that, your
Hmm.
snakes as well, along with the uncountable amount of birds that it helps as well.
Hmm.
I'll trade off a couple turkeys for the, 2000% of other species that it helps
Right.
compared to that,
Yeah. 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 Well, we were just talking even with the deer. Like we have to
Oh
find
yeah.
that line and walk it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I will say, and I know that this would probably be a hot topic for some people, but sometimes I feel like I wish that they had a hand in maybe doing a little bit of management on like national forest ground. And I know,
Yep.
that is definitely a fine line. But like, when I look out west, California is a great example, and you don't have any fire lanes or any fire blocks cut anywhere. And these fires, I mean, they're not able to get in there and cut any trees or make
Right.
anything to help blockade. And I mean, look up north, man. Freaking Canada's on fire, and you can't even breathe outside.
Oh, and
And
I'm looking out my window right now, and it's nothing but smoke still.
it's
It's been like
crazy,
this for
man.
3 days. Yeah, and
I'm telling you, the other morning there when it was foggy and the smoke, it was wild. We were on the tracks, so we couldn't see nothing. I mean, it was
right.
just it's crazy, man.
Oh
It
yeah.
reminded me of that movie, Stephen King, The Fog, or whatever that movie was called.
Yeah.
I was waiting for them to blow that whistle or hit
Yeah.
that horn or whatever. But I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
jump in. You have a background in some survival stuff,
Yeah.
and what exactly was your training, and how did that come about?
So I had a lot of military training on that. Just nature of the beast was my job. I could get deployed wherever basically,
Hmm.
and learn how to survive because not like with my job too being a medic too, like it was my job to keep people alive as well. It wasn't, hey, I just gotta go survive. It's no, I gotta keep all of these guys living basically.
Right.
And while yeah, that was part of it, a lot of it was really self-taught. And I ended up getting in with a group that I really like these guys and everything, and they helped me get a certification for Canada actually for a assistant wilderness guide up there as well. That it's really survival based, and it's not just okay how to navigate and stuff. It's like, hey, here's how to plan for short-term survival. Here's how to plan, because if it's August and you get lost up there, winter comes in September. Like
Right.
you have a month to get ready for winter, and it's, hey, we got to start building shelter right now. And yeah, you're gonna have to cut 40 trees down to make one hut, but it's going to be worth the effort and the time as long as you have the energies to sustain it and everything. And after that, I kind of just delved right into, okay, like how can I eat out here if I can't kill anything, right? And looking at various parts of trees that you can eat, like you can eat the inner bark of a hemlock that has so much vitamin C in it that it will cure scurvy, actually, right?
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
all of these different pieces and stuff that can keep you alive that people have no idea about. It's crazy. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I do great on the show or whatever, but that like Naked and Afraid and stuff like that. It's like
Hmm.
you see these guys trying to survive and stuff, and it's like I've spotted trees there that you could live off of, and they don't take advantage of it at all.
Right. Yeah, man.
Granted, I'm not in that situation at all. I don't know what I would do, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I look at these things all day and I know what I can eat out of these.
And I guess did you have a mentor for foraging? Because that's something that I really want to lean into a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I know a guy, and he's just so freaking busy, and I wish he'd get a little more time for me, which I'm sure he will. But how did you come about learning that stuff? Because especially when you're dealing with mushrooms and shit, like shit can get dangerous, or you can get sick pretty quickly. So how
Oh
did you?
yeah. No. Um, Honestly, like it was all self-taught for the
Wow,
most part. I would
that's.
I buy the Peterson's guides
Hmm.
and I would just read them over and over and over and try to think of something out in the field if I see it, like, oh, okay, what's that? And I didn't really delve into a lot of mushrooms to begin with because I was like, those are going to be hairy. That's going to take a while to learn. What can I learn now that's easily identifiable that I know I cannot mess this up? Like
Yeah.
I know what a hemlock tree is. There's no other tree that looks like it,
Yep.
stuff like that. And then slowly and slowly I get into more mushrooms and stuff. And even then, like I'm still I like if I have to survive out in the woods, I'm probably not gonna eat a mushroom unless it's like I know 100% certain that's what this is.
Right. Definitely not a go-to. But, moving into that, what are some of the things that you love to forage for and then you use them to cook with?
I mean, naturally, some of my favorite are mushrooms. Yeah, like you have your chicken in the woods, hen in the woods, morels, which morels are very hard to find up here, but like my property, I can grow chanterelles on. Like I found them out there. Um, there's various mushrooms out here, but that's not really my thing. Is like, oh, okay, here's the ones that everybody knows about. Like, I'll grab a puffball before it spores, and you can do a ton of stuff with that, right?
Yeah.
I love digging for leeks. I love digging for any sort of like a wild carrot or anything like that as well. And then like your spruce tips, I love eating those, right? Or kind of late spring or stuff. And then all of your trees that you can find stuff off of, like your chestnuts, if you can find them. Um, acorns, if you know when to get them, how to get them, and how to process them, acorns are delicious,
Yeah.
right?
I've heard that.
Making my own hickory bark syrup too. It's that and like maple syrup and stuff like that.
Right.
That's some of my favorite stuff. Not only because yeah, it tastes good and everything, and it's not store bought, but it builds such a memory in my head of like I'm proud of that thing that I have sitting in my fridge right now that I can pull out and be like, I made this six
Yeah.
months ago because I spent the time and I went out into the woods and I picked the bark off this hickory tree and I boiled it down and I boiled it down and I got this delicious syrup out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying because we make maple syrup and I love it, man. It's just
Yeah.
cool. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You do it yourself and then we have tried multiple different ways to make it, but on an open fire is what we prefer, and it gets like a slightly smoky taste to it
Yeah.
that we like more. And some guys are like, "Oh, that's not right. That's not done right." Well, to each is their own. I
Right. Yeah.
we like the way it tastes like that, and it's just crazy, that it takes anywhere from 40 to 50 gallons just to make 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool process. I'm glad some guys showed me the ropes on that, and we do it as a family now. And I know that for that occasion, I know that beer sales are what you want to buy stocks in for because when you're standing around a fire for a couple hours, it looks like
Right.
an
Yeah.
episode of Hank Hill, man. Everybody's standing around going, "Yep, yep."
Oh yeah.
Uh, but I wanted to move on to some different foods and stuff, man. And I have a recipe that I got from you
Yeah.
for turkey marinade, and I had reached out to you and talked to you about doing my pheasants with them, and I actually pulled out more pheasants than I thought I did, and there was two pheasants in each pack, where here I thought there was one, so I doubled it,
Ah.
and I was going to cook 15 to 18 or something like that, and I ended up making like 36 or something like that.
Oh man.
So you'll see the video, man. I'm doing some editing to it, but the marinade was wonderful. I want to tell you that the people that were around that ate it, they didn't believe me. They said that's chicken, and I said no, no, this is definitely not chicken. Like you can look at it. Some of the pieces were a little shot up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And luckily nobody hit any BBs.
Oh good.
I would say that that's probably from the clean job. Somebody really really took their time and did them, and it was not me. I am all for cleaning birds, but these birds come off of a game farm where we had a get together, and
Oh yeah.
they had a one of those I don't know, de feather type deals with the rubber and
Yeah.
all that shit, and it did a great job because nobody hit a BB, and that's kind of rare.
Oh yeah.
But the marinade was awesome, man. Everybody, hats off to you. Thank you so much for that. And
Yeah.
what are some of the recipes that you're working on right now? I know that today you did one. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, today was a big one. Really, so I'll go with a little journey to start with. It'll be quick here. So back, like when I started cooking for Bo last year, I was like, okay, I know how to cook. I make good stuff right now, but it's all kind of your typical stuff. Like, hey, here is some, a steak with mashed potatoes. Like, I might make a pan sauce or something like that.
Hmm.
And nowadays, like, and mind you, this is just a year later. Like, I looked back the other day and I'm like, wow, like, what happened? Like, what changed? And now it's, hey, what do I have in the house? What can I throw together that I can make a dish out of? And it's things like you would see on like guys' grocery games on TV or something, right? Where you would have no idea what the hell, like you don't even know how they came up with that, but yet it looks delicious, it sounds delicious, and you're sure it's delicious. That's the kind of stuff I'm working with right now. So tonight I did it was a take on a shepherd's pie.
Okay.
However, I gotta, oh, there we go. I had a burp there. I'm sorry. Um, I did it in the with like flavors of a beef Wellington, right? So your mushrooms in there with the red wine, duck salad, basically. Your mustard in there, prosciutto, and everything like that. And I did that today with bison that my buddy Kurt, which is Bo's brother, Kurt Martonic. I think he's on Instagram as Kurt the Gunsmith. Amazing gunsmith too. If you ever need a gunsmith, absolutely hands down one of the best. Um, he gave me some bison the other day that I was like, all right, I'll do something with it. And I was like, granted, we buy half a cow a year that my uncle raises in Clarion. That I mean, it's not USDA, but it rivals Wagyu stuff. Like he really
Damn.
takes his time with this stuff. And I was like, oh, you know what? No, I'd use bison in this dish, right? So I was like, all right, how do I do this? Going through and I'm like, okay, how do I amp it up? How do I amp it up? How do I amp it up? And I ended up building all these flavors into this thing that was really reminiscent of like a beef Wellington that you would get, at a fancy restaurant. And then the top was like mashed potatoes on top. They were done very nicely. They were riced, and I mixed some egg and cream and butter and salt and pepper and everything in there like that. Well, then I took baby golden Yukon potatoes, and one of the recipes I'm developing right now that isn't necessarily wild game. It's a hot German potato salad with these crispy, beautiful crispy potatoes and a like glaze for the dressing on it, right? That's your mustard and your vinegar and everything and your sugar boiled down and turned into a glaze. And I use that technique on these potatoes to put on top of this, along with like crispy prosciutto and crispy bacon and everything to give you different texture, to give you different flavor and everything like that. You wouldn't be able to tell it's bison in there at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have had bison numerous times, and yeah, I think that it's right around like I'm trying to compare it to maybe if you mixed like some beef with a little bit of venison, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say now, bison it's pretty lean though, isn't it? It's probably
Yeah.
just
It
as
is very lean, and that's why I incorporated the bacon in there as well. I was like,
mhm,
this doesn't go with this dish, but I need fat in here
right.
somehow. So I rendered all that down, and then I sauteed the bison in it, and I browned that bison up in it. So it was, yeah, it had the bacon flavor into it as well, but I now had all that fat inside this dish too.
Right. Do you now when you normally cook like with your venison stuff, do you use a lot of like beef fat mixture or like pork mixture?
Um,
Do you add
pending, yeah, pending what I want to do with it, and I'm very selective about the cuts that I do now. Like I don't really grind a whole bunch anymore. Like out of say I get a dough and it's say it's 100 pounds field dressed or whatever,
hmm
I might end up with 5 pounds of ground meat if that, and that's just trimmings.
hmm
Um, a lot of my flavor profile that I like, I do tend to use beef fat rather than cutting it half and half with pork or something like that. I like the beef fat because it gives fat. It's very similar to venison in the terms of the type of animal it came from,
hmm
but the venison still really sticks out in there.
Yeah. Um, that is one thing I think that it can be hard to do too is to understand the amount of mixture that you need so that you still have venison instead of just beef when
Right.
you're adding stuff in. Um, some other stuff like cooking with like lards and stuff. Do you do that too?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of like if I get a bear, I will render out all the fat out of that, and I'll use
Nice.
that, pretty much all year round.
Yeah.
I do tend to buy, 5, 10 pounds of beef tallow at a time, and I'll render that down. And I'll use that to cook with as well. Pending when I get a deer as well. And now, granted, I shoot, probably 5 to 6 deer a year at this
Mhm.
point. Pending how fatty they are, I know a ton of people are like, "Oh my god, deer fat's so gross," and like, "I don't want to eat it. It sucks and stuff." I'll render it down and use it in dishes, and people can't like. People are like, "Oh, this is so good. What is it?" And I'm like, "It's deer with deer fat." And they're like, "What?"
I mean, that's impressive, bro. I will tell you, like, I got all the fat off my deer. So,
Yeah,
we'll definitely have to talk about that some more, 'cause
yeah. It's a unique process, and granted, it's if you shoot a buck mid rut,
right.
it's not going to taste good.
I
That
got
fat
you.
is not going to be good at all.
Yeah.
However, if you shoot a doe, mid December in late season, and she has a ton of fat on her,
Mhm.
it's going to be pretty well a neutral flavor.
Yeah, man. I don't think that I've ever heard that or been around that before. And do you make like, one thing I have tried to make and I have been unsuccessful, but I know some guys that say that they're good at it and they can do it. But do you make any ribs with deer meat at all? Like, do you use the ribs?
So I've used them for like tomahawk steaks and stuff like that. I have cooked deer ribs as well. Um, it's very difficult to do just because there's almost no meat there.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
really have to watch your time. You really have to watch your temperature. And the issue that you have when you're doing something like that is ideally you want to low and slow that or braise it or smoke it really low and slow because there's a lot of connective tissue in there. And where you benefit from pork and beef is they have a ton of fat,
Hmm.
whereas venison does not. So
Right.
it is going to dry up and get tough very, very quickly. So you really have to keep an eye on it. And while I don't like, I kind of don't mess with the ribs anymore unless I'm doing tomahawk steaks or something like that. But like, if I'm gonna smoke any venison, either, a lot of people have the same issue. Oh, it dries out too quick.
Hmm.
Inject it with beef tallow or warm butter that it's not hot enough to cook the meat when you put it inside of it or something like that, but it's enough where you can push it through the needle and get it into the meat. That'll keep it nice and tender. That'll keep it nice and moist in there too.
Mm. That is definitely a very good take on it, and I couldn't agree more. Now, the tomahawk steaks, I haven't tried to do that yet. That's definitely on the list. I want to try to do that. And
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I do with my burgers, if I'm just gonna do a straight venison burger, since they are so lean, is I will take a stick of butter and I will put it in the
Hmm.
freezer, and then I'll get a cheese grinder out
Yeah.
and I will grind the butter into the meat, and it kind of looks like it's cheese, right?
Yep.
And then I'll make my burgers like that, and I'll throw them on the Blackstone, and it keeps
Yeah.
them very moist, and you're able to kind of keep the burger together. If you don't want to use egg or breadcrumb or Parmesan
Right.
cheese or whatever,
Yep.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can use. But
Oh
um,
yeah.
what would you say like some of your favorite wild game to cook is? What's stuff that you're like, man, I just love cooking this shit, and I can't wait to cook it again.
One of my favorite ones is I make a really good any wild game birria taco, right? Like I've done it moose, elk, boar, venison, anything like that. It is absolutely delicious because the way I build my recipe, I build it with enough tenderizers in there, so like tomato and pineapple and stuff like that, where it breaks down the meat so much that it's tender no matter what. And one of the first times I ever made birria too, it was with venison. Like I took a shot and I was like, I see these tacos, they look good. Screw it, I'll try to make them. Like I know how to make them, and if I mess it up, I know how to fix it too. That's part of the confidence in my kitchen too. Is if I mess something up, I know how to fix it per
Right.
se, or I know how to change it. Um, but one of the first times I made those, like me and the wife bit into them, and we just looked at each other. Like we didn't have to say anything. We just looked and we're like, "Holy shit, this is good."
Oh man, I love that
Um,
feeling.
yeah, it's delicious. And then I make a really good wild game queso as well. Like I cooked for Spartan Forge and Seek One down in Alabama in January, which Bill from Spartan Forge, he was at Bo's event last year, and he loved the food so much, and he's like, "Oh, like that's awesome. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. Like you're hired, you
Hell
know." And
yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And he's like, "Oh, we'll probably do it like somewhere near Sheffield this year, like where Johnny Stewart's camp is and
Hmm.
stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah, that works, man. Like I'm, a town over." And then I get a call in like August. He's like, "Hey, you want to go to Alabama instead?" And I was like, I guess, like, yeah, sure, why not?" And I made this queso down there for these guys. They ate themselves out of chips and started eating it with a spoon. It was that good.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That shit makes you feel so good, man.
Oh, yeah.
That is what, it's a rush.
Yeah.
It is, man. It's a high. It'll put you on a high when you're cooking for people, because you're wait it's such a climatic moment when you're watching somebody bite into something that you just made and slaved over and put
Yeah.
labor into, and you just it can also crush you though too, because when someone's freaking lying to you and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's good." And you're like, "Fuck you."
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's funny enough, too. Like, they always say, oh, like chefs have to taste their food as they go and stuff. Like, well, yeah, I do. But I'm like, I'm sitting there cooking it. Like, I know what it should taste like. I know what it smells like. Like,
Hmm.
I have the wife taste it all the time.
Yeah.
And if I don't get the response I'm looking for out of her, I'm like, how do I make it better then? Like,
Right.
what's wrong with it?
I Man, I feel that. I feel that 100%.
Yeah,
Hey, I love that shit, man. That's the journey, and that's why we love doing this stuff. And it's so cool to be able to bring this to people. And what's even crazier though is, when you get around people and they're like, "Man, I never had nothing like this before." And you're like, "Well, I mean, don't you cook?" Like,
right. Yeah,
and it's amazing how many people just don't do it, man. They say screw that, and they'll buy, they'll eat out. They'll have food delivered or whatever else.
right.
And man, I don't even know how some people can afford that, to be honest with you. But uh, I think they're really missing out on a great opportunity to be able to cook for themselves. But
Oh, absolutely. And like, I worked at the butcher shop for a year here to really learn some skills there to help me
yeah,
with,
it's awesome.
like, hey, if I go out to, like, I went to Alabama and I'd butcher deer right there and I serve fresh backstrap that night,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
um, it was amazing. Like, we sell probably 50 different kinds of sausages there that we all make in house, right? The amount of people that were just like, how do I cook this? And I'm like, till it's done. Like, what do you mean? How do you cook this? There's 80 different ways you can do it. What are you looking for,
Right.
And it's flabbergasting how many people don't cook or don't know how to cook or don't know the fundamentals. And I'm like, turn Food Network on for a couple days and you're going to learn more than you learned in high school about anything.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I think that just comes down to patience, though.
Yeah,
A lot of people. Number one, one of the biggest things, and I preach on here all the time, is nobody wants to read a book for whatever reason or another. Then they won't even listen to an audiobook, which is crazy because they're probably listening to this podcast right now.
right. Yeah,
And the other thing is they just aren't open to stuff. A lot of people
yeah,
don't like new things. They don't like change, and that's why I was saying, when we first started talking, that the entrepreneurial thing, man, it goes a long way because you're constantly trying new things. You're going down different paths, and especially the networking skills, man. Because look at the network that you have right now,
right.
and that's a testament to what you're doing. That's how you expand, and that's how you get better at this shit. And what I do want to go into is there's a lot of people that might be listening to this thinking, man, I need to step my game up. Like I need to be like Gunnar and make some badass shit and serve it up. What do you tell people when they're like, hey man, how can I kind of get started doing this?
One of my biggest things is, well, watch Food Network a little bit, right? Like, I'll be honest too. Like, I'm a 100% self-taught cook, and I attribute that to Good Eats that Alton Brown had on as a TV show in the like early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad was like, hey, like, I don't really want you watching cartoons, like, you don't learn anything. So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't care about the History Channel. I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. I'll turn Food Network on, and that's why I know so much about what I know. But if you have ground venison, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take your favorite dish that you make with ground beef, make it with venison, see how it tastes, right?
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't taste how you want it to, think of what flavor you're missing and add that into it until you get it where you want it, right? So if you're making tacos, right, and say you add your taco seasoning, and albeit most people are going to use a packet, I can't control that. I'm not that guy. Um, but it's like, okay, say you get a little bit too much of the gamey taste, which really, wild game isn't gamey tasting. That's just how it tastes. People just don't like it because it doesn't taste like beef, you know?
Yeah, it's not what they're used to.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, well, up the flavor then to get rid of that flavor if you want to. Add another half a packet of taco seasoning and see where it takes you. If you need more, add more. Do something like that to where you can introduce it into a dish that you love and still have it taste great.
Yeah, or just
And then
or just add more,
expand from there. Yeah.
or just add more cumin.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, now when it comes to, and this isn't just specific to deer meat. It's just most of the people that listen to this in this audience are definitely probably familiar with either butchering their own deer or eating deer meat. And do you like, so say you shoot a deer, you guys go out and have a good day with some rifles, or
Yeah.
you take a doe or a buck one night with the bow.
hmm
Do you let it hang for a while if you can? Do you do you try to get some of the blood out of it? Like what I've seen some people do is I will actually take my burger after we grind it if I didn't feel like it hung long enough, and
hmm
I will put it into some I'm trying to think of the name of it, cheesecloth,
Oh yeah.
and just have it elevated on something so that so some blood can run out of it.
Yeah.
Do you, I mean, do you practice anything like that, or do anything special or specific with your meat when you're butchering it?
So that's a really big rabbit hole for me. I do a lot of stuff starting with like when I shoot it actually too. So you have these guys out there that they're like, "Oh, I give it at least 20 minutes after I shoot a deer with a bow, or like I give it an hour or something." And I'm like, I know, like I'm confident enough to where I know I made a good shot. You know what I mean? I'm chasing that thing right away
Damn.
because it's gonna die. And granted, most of my stuff is dead within 100 yards. By the time I pull myself together of like, okay, I just shot a deer. Let me find my area. Let me find blood. It ends up taking 5 or 10 minutes before I'm like, okay, I'm on the track. Let's go, get down to it or wherever. And I'm like, yeah, it's clearly dead. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Rifle. If it's not a buck, I'm headshots only, just to not waste meat. I shoot like I'm basically essentially shooting a sniper rifle at this point, and it obliterates everything
Right.
inside, and
Hmm.
it weighs half the deer. So I'm like, okay, headshots only from now on.
Hmm.
But it all starts with like how I field dress this and everything like that too. And a lot of people are the people that are like, oh, I'll let it hang, hide on for till I can get to it, and I'm like. I get to hide off as soon as possible. Like the moment I get it to my truck, I'm starting to take the hide off
Hmm.
because the hide is what keeps deer warm. That is what keeps all the heat in, and heat will make meat go bad faster, right? That's where you can get some of the irony taste because it's holding on to more blood. That's where you can get some of the rancid taste because, if it's, 2 days before you get that hide off of it and it's 40 degrees out, there's a good chance that that meat is somewhere around 50 degrees inside still, if not warmer, just building bacteria, right?
Hmm.
So I will immediately gut it, immediately skin it, and then pending what I want to do with it and the situation the deer was taken as well. If it's a rut buck, I'm going to let it hang and let some blood out of it to try to get, some of that irony taste, some of that gamey taste out of it because I know it's not going to taste the best there. However, if it's a opening week dough, I cut it and vac it and freeze it that day pretty much because there's no flavor to it as is.
Hmm.
Um, I've dry aged, I've wet aged, I have a specially built fridge in my garage with hooks in it to where I can hang quarters on it and let it age as long as I want. I've done one day all the way up to 2 weeks. There really is a whole this is a whole different ball game that a lot of people don't ever realize, and it changes the flavor dramatically. Like I
Does.
could pull out 4 different deer from the freezer that I've treated different. They all taste way different from the other one.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just started doing the wet aging
Yeah.
probably 2 years ago, and my wife is a big fan, and I am too.
Yeah.
I think that that's the way I like it now, and I do some other stuff different. But I will say that the vacuum sealing
Yep.
is that's the way to go, folks. Just spend a couple extra bucks and do it because you're talking to a guy who's eaten deer meat all his life, and there's no better way to package your deer meat. I'm sorry, it's
Right.
just the
Yep.
the way to do it, and that's the way it needs to be done. And what I've actually started doing just to make it easier on my wife, if she's busy or whatever, and I'm at work and she wants to pull some steaks out or whatever, is I will put all the seasoning in
Oh yeah.
or a marinade or whatever, and it's in the bag, it's ready to go. And she just pulls it out, and if it didn't have enough time to marinate, whenever I was putting it together, we just let it sit and thaw for 24 hours or so,
Yep.
and then it marinates overnight or whatever, and they go on the grill or however they're getting cooked, and they're wonderful. So,
Oh yeah. Yep.
um, yeah, that is a really cool conversation to get into, man. Like I said, not a lot of people, you know, know about that or even think to go that route or try that. So,
Oh yeah.
I appreciate you touching on that for sure.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And
go ahead.
touching on the vacuum thing too, like that's the only way I like to preserve any meat nowadays too. It just the presence of oxygen is what makes meat go bad at some point. Whether even a lot of people tend to think too, oh, I'm gonna throw this in the freezer, it'll be good forever. And it's like degradation doesn't stop when it's frozen. Like it's still degrading in there. It's still breaking down in there,
Right.
just at a much slower pace.
Hmm.
Um, and I was gonna touch on this too. Like I have two different types of vacuum sealers. I have your typical, food saver type one where it
Hmm.
sucks the air out from the inside of the bag.
Hmm.
That's good in a pinch, or, if I'm doing something real quick, something like that. I also have a vacuum chamber one too, where it sucks the air out of a whole entire chamber. That is by far my favorite way to do it as well. Because if you notice, like you'll throw, say you throw backstrap into one of the food saver bags and you
Hmm.
vacuum it, you see the juice start to come out of it.
Hmm.
That doesn't happen with this chamber one, and you can marinate in this chamber one. It won't suck liquid out. You can quick marinate. Like I've done a backstrap where I threw my marinade in the bag and threw the backstrap in there, vacuum sealed it up. It was fully integrated through all of that meat in about an hour's time.
Damn,
Yeah, it was crazy. You could see the change through the whole thing.
that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
they're more expensive. However, get the regular one now and just save up for the other one. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a whole ton. You can find them used and everything like that, but they are well worth the money.
So here's this is my gripe with guys that talk about stuff that costs more money than other things.
Yeah.
They'll buy a new bow every year, right?
Yeah.
Right? But they won't spend money. God forbid they spend money on something to butcher a deer, right?
Right.
Or they drive an $80,000 pickup truck, but God forbid they bought a new pair of boots that are waterproof.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
I don't I don't understand that shit, man.
Nope.
It's whatever, man. To each is their own, but it is funny to bring that up because a lot of people will relate to that. Or I know guys that just don't spend any money on anything, and they're dragging the biggest buck that there is off the hill every year.
Oh, I know. Yeah. No, those are the guys who, yeah, it sounds dumb, but a lot of people are like, oh, like he's just some dumb redneck. And I'm like, I'm going to go pick his brain because
Yeah,
he has the simplest of shit on,
yeah.
and he's using the oldest gun out here, the oldest bow, one of the old like golden eagles from the 90s or something. And it's like,
Yeah,
how did he do this? Like, what is he doing? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Where I have guys that they have the newest bow every year, they have all the new gear and stuff, and they suck. And I'm
yeah.
like, because like good equipment doesn't make you good. It's the knowledge that makes you good.
Yep. And those guys are the guys that I'm after. Those
Yeah.
those guys that have invaluable information and just
Yep.
nobody knows it. And all you have to do is go up and ask, and they'll give you an earful. Those are the
Yep.
guys that we want to be talking to. But yeah,
Exactly.
those guys are awesome, man. And that's why I pay homage to like the trad community so much and stuff because you know they don't have all that technology. Like they
No.
just I seen a thing the other day and it was something about like tuning a bow
Yeah.
and trad guys, and it was a caveman that goes, huh, ooh, ha, ha, huh,
Right. Yeah.
because
Exactly.
like they don't. It's just it's simple, man. It's simple. It's just the way you shoot the bow, and
Yep.
it's oh, without technology, man, things are way different. And just like you were talking about, like I have a whole bunch of Sika gear, and I got a very heavy discount on that stuff, and
Oh yeah.
it's nice, man. It's nice because I can compare it to other stuff that I've had that was like decent, like some Under Armour stuff and
Right.
some other companies and things. But if someone comes to me and they're like, "Oh man, well I got to get that Sika gear," I'm like, I mean, it's just because you have extra money. Because if it's because you think you're going to be a better hunter, then you're on the wrong path.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yep.
it's definitely a slippery slope, man. But
Yep.
you have some of your own spices and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about them?
Yeah, man. The one I have out right now is the Ricochet rub. That's actually named for our family camp. Like I said, we've had since 1954. It's Camp Ricochet. Um, that one I developed especially this year for Bo's other event this year, his second mountain scouting camp this year, mountain buck scouting camp. And that took me 11 different recipes to come up with that, and that was playing with flavor and texture and everything. And now, mind you, too, like my wife's pregnant right now, and at that time I was developing this, she had a very strong aversion to anything it smelled strong or steak or anything like that.
Yeah,
And
been
I'd
there.
get home from work and cook three different steaks with different rubs that I make. And she was just like, I can't be here right now. Like, I
Yeah,
cannot smell this. And that one took me 11 different tries, but there is nothing like it on the market right now. It is, and this isn't just me like bragging up my stuff either. Like, I have not found a rub that's like this right now. So it is a coffee and chili base in this, right?
sweet.
And I took it a step further and I introduced some like minced garlic and some minced onion for some texture and mustard seed in there too. But I was like, man, like I'm a chef though. Like I know how to build flavors. I know about umami. Like how do I put this into a rub, right? And I was like, okay, the chili in here has a bunch of stuff that can go with it, right? You can go somewhere and buy like a spicy chocolate bar. So I threw cocoa powder in there because it goes well and it gives some earthy tones to this, right? And then I was like, all right, what else can I do? What's a big flavor bomb? And I was like, Worcestershire sauce is like I use it in everything. They make it in powdered form. So
Damn,
I
I
threw
didn't
that
know
in
that.
there, right? Yeah, and it's like I'm going through all this and like I threw a ton of coffee in there too, and then one of my favorite spices on earth is cinnamon, right? And it's not for just sweet stuff either. Like I put it in my barbecue stuff. I put it in like my pasta sauces. I put it in this rub because it's a very nice warming type of spice
hmm
that if you don't put too much in, it blends everything so nicely together. And like this rub I've used in Asian dishes, Mexican, Italian, barbecue, your normal American stuff. I use it in everything and it can lend some sort of flavor profile to whatever dish it is in because there's so much going on in it.
Yeah, I have cooked with cinnamon, mostly with venison,
Yeah.
especially like with any ground venison, and that has definitely been a hit, man. And I'm super excited to try your rub because I'm always looking for different things, man. And anything with coffee in it, I'm like a fanatic for coffee. I love the
Oh
bean.
yeah.
I love the bean, man. I get down with it, and
Yeah.
I'm super excited to be able to try that. And
Heck yeah.
I wanted to jump into like some equipment, man. You were a
Yeah.
chef, so
Yeah.
let's talk about. Do you have any recommendations for knives? Because I think that that's the tool, you know.
Oof. That is a tough one and without being how do I without sounding like I'm sponsored or anything like that, because I'm not, right?
Right.
He's
Okay.
one of my good buddies. He makes all of my chef knives for him. I have six from him right now, and you can't find this stuff in stores. It's that high quality, right? Um, that's the thing though, is find a local knife maker, and then find a guy that's a couple hours from you, who's pretty much small time work with him to design a knife, right? Like I started work. His name is Luke Bright. He owns Barrel Falls Blade Works out of Niagara Falls, and I hit him up one day and I was talking about some knives and we never got to anything. And then I ended up winning a raffle off of him, and I had him build me two. And he sent them down, and I was like, okay, like there's some flaws in these, and I was like, hey man, like I'm not bad or anything, like just constructive criticism. This is what I see on my end as the consumer of these. And he took that and he ran with it, man. And the next knife I ordered was 3,000% a better knife than what he sent me previously, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane. And his prices weren't bad at the time either. Like they're still not crazy, but
Yeah,
the
you're
store-bought
paying for
knives that you
quality, you know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And that's the knives that you can go get at Walmart, they're not going to stay sharp. They're made out of a shitty steel, right?
Yep.
Do a little bit of research into a steel, find a good company that you like, and mind you, me saying his knives aren't crazy expensive, some of the knives I have from him are $400 or $500 knives,
Hmm.
right? Most people would be like, "What the hell?" Like I would never do that. Mind you, I do this professionally, so like I kind of have to have very high equipment there.
For sure.
But you know, find one that hey, maybe it's $200, right? You will never use another knife in your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Like the one knife he made me, I can do everything with it. I pretty much that's the only knife I use. I have six of them. I use one because I can do everything with it.
Yep. Yeah, that's the beauty of it, man. Now, does he make your
Yeah.
sharpeners too, or do you use a certain brand?
Honestly, man, his stuff is so good that I have only ever had to hone it so far.
Yeah, that's
I have
cool.
not had to sharpen it.
Do you when you hone it, do you use you just use like leather or anything, or what do you?
No, I just use a straightening steel,
Okay.
basically that like I got used to using it in the butcher shop and then
Hmm.
bought one for the house and that's it.
That's awesome, man.
And that's a lot of people don't realize too, like yes, there's bevels on on your blades and that's how you sharpen. However, there's also micro bevels, right? And
Hmm.
when that bends over, your knife feels dull and it won't cut as well anymore.
Hmm.
You run that thing on a steel, it straightens that out, it breaks that off. It's as sharp as it was when you actually sharpened it. Now, you might have to, like a professional chef or like a butcher or something, you'll sharpen your knife about once a week and hone it 30 to 40 times a day,
Hmm.
basically, up
Yeah.
until then.
Right.
The average guy, like the stuff I use at my house right now, like I said, I've never sharpened it. The one I've had for well over a year at this point.
Yep. Yeah, knives are a huge tool, man, and that's why I bring it up because I'm super picky about my stuff too, and it
Yeah,
makes your job way easier too.
right.
Especially whenever I'm butchering deer and stuff, and I'm in there with a sharp blade, and it's just shaving time off of the time needed, and
Yep,
you get, especially when you're ever dealing with some trauma, when you're cutting off some trauma,
yeah.
that's like that slimy, really
Oh,
hard to
yeah.
cut stuff, and some other spots that you're taking fat off of. Having a
Yep.
sharp knife is key, and um, it's the way to do it, man. Um,
Yeah, heck yeah.
how about, what kind of hunter are you, man? And what I mean by that, like, how are your setups? Are you hunting a saddle? Are you a mobile hunter? Are you hunting hanging hunts? Do you have preset stuff? What is kind of your game whenever you're out in the woods?
So, way back when in the Navy, when I really got into archery hunting, I was more of okay, I'll use a climber, I'll do a couple, walk on stuff like that. And I was
Hmm.
like, this kind of sucks. Like I'm not the biggest fan of this. Like I'm stuck in one tree all fucking day. I
Yeah.
don't care for this. And with, um, with like my beliefs and everything like that, like I'm very connected to nature and everything like that too. So once I got out, I tried the whole tree stand thing for a year again, and honestly, like I bought a brand new climber. I hated it so much. I left it 3 miles in the woods, and I see it every year when I go hunt there, and I don't care about it. I don't want it. You know
That's
what I
funny.
mean? Um, so I took the last 4 years to strictly ground hunt, actually, and
That's
a
awesome.
lot of people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, like you're just hunting in the blind," and no, I walk a backpack, my bow, and a chair, and that's it, right? I read the land, I read hunt sign, I'm able to pick up on trails that other people can't see yet. And when you're hunting this ANF now up here, you're getting a lot more pressure in archery and everything, and deer tend to move on these sub trails that aren't the main trails per se because there's so much pressure in the woods right
Hmm.
now. And I'm successful every year, multiple times a year because of this right now. And this year, I finally decided I was like, okay, I've done this 4 years now. I've yeah, like I've learned what I need to learn. I'm constantly having success. Yes, I've had failures too. But I've learned from them very well, and I've learned a lot about deer. I've learned a lot about nature and everything. Let me try to get back in a tree. And now, mind you, like, come rifle season, yeah, I'd hop in a tree stand to walk on or something like that. Because it's when you're shooting a rifle, the higher vantage point you can have, the easier it is to kill something.
For sure.
So I do that. I was like, I like it because I can see a lot more, but I'm like, I hate tree stands. I'm not gonna take the time to go set up a lock on and stuff like that and be stuck in a tree. And I'm not gonna buy another climber because, well, yeah, I'm a big dude. I still don't want to put a 30-pound climber on my back on top of my Fanatic set and all of my backpack and my bow, which my bow is a monster and it probably weighs 10 to 15 pounds with everything on it. Like, it's a big bow. I'm like, I'm not carrying, 40, 50, 60 pounds out in the woods to hunt deer. So um, through all of my adventures right now, I've gotten hooked up with Jason Red from Timber Ninja, and I'm going to be running all of his gear this year. And
Nice.
I'm like, I'm not even sponsored by Jason. He doesn't give me shit. I'm paying full price for this stuff because I like his stuff so much right now.
Yeah.
So this is my first year that I will be getting into a saddle. Granted, I have a pretty good idea what I'm doing about. I've been in the timber industry quite a while. I've used them before and stuff like that, just not for hunting
Right.
applications. And
Yeah, you've been in a harness and lineman belt.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's I think I think I might see a pretty big change in what I'm able to accomplish this year too. Just going in deeper and getting set up better and getting in a tree better because a lot of the times on the ground you get busted, you know, 6 times out of 10 because at some time you're 40 yards staring a deer eye to eye, like you are ground level with them, you cannot move, and they're like, huh, that's not a tree over there and that's not in a tree over there. I don't think I'm gonna stick around for this.
Isn't it funny though? Whenever you go eye to eye with them, like it's, man, you know what I always do? I either close my eye and like barely have them open, or I just look away. Because it's like,
Oh yeah,
when you make that eye contact, if you're staring, it's like you can't do that. They'll
right.
turn and bolt, or
Yep.
you kind of look away, and then they're good with it. And somebody told me one time, and I don't even know if it's true, but they said, oh well, all predators have eyes on the front of their head, and that's why they take you as a threat. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that sometimes they look through you, and you can get away
Yep.
with it. They're looking at you, but it's like kind of like looking through you. It's like they know you're there, but they haven't found you yet. And then, other times when they make that eye contact, and it's like, I better look away. It's just a weird.
Oh yeah.
It's weird, man. It's like you can feel that shit, but.
Oh yeah, it's weird, and I do it a lot too. Like if I see one coming, I know I'm not going to shoot. I don't even pay attention to it till it's gone.
Yeah, yeah, man. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will get a draw on it and just kind of get that practice motion or whatever. But,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, man. I have done the saddle thing for a couple years now. It's pretty cool. Some other things that I have tried and do is I will hang and hunt, but I'll wear my saddle so that I'm like a hybrid system.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as hunting on the ground, boy, it's really hard. But I know guys that are super successful at hunting in the ground. And when you're moving through the woods, like, do you like make any turkey calls or do you grunt or anything like that? Like when you're moving around or getting set up?
Um. So I will grunt sometimes. Just pending what I'm doing. However, like with how much I've hunted the ground now, mind you too, like my the first year I ever ground hunted for full time, right? I put in oh god, what was it? I think I put in 56 days on the ground
Damn.
actually. And it wasn't just I'm out for an hour. Like I put in close to 400 hours out, right?
Jesus.
And like that, it really taught me a lot. So like I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, like my uncle was up hunting with us, and he's not old by any sort of means, you know what I mean, but he was one of the guys that kind of taught me more about woodsmanship when I was little and stuff like that, and like walking in the woods and stuff. And
Right.
we're hunting the same area, and we meet up on this logging road to walk out and everything. And I'm dead quiet walking. I mean, like I can't even hear myself, and I hear him just dragging feet back there. And I'm like, Brian, like you're the guy that taught me how to walk in the woods, and you're making the most noise out of anyone here.
That's
So really, I learned how to pick my feet up and put them down and not step on twigs and stuff like that. And everybody's like, "Oh, like you should be watching your surroundings." And I'm like, if I'm walking, I'm not hunting right now. I
mm-hmm.
do not need to be looking around me because when I'm hunting off the ground, even if there's a deer at 70 yards, I've been moving. They're gonna get spooked. They're gonna run. I'm not gonna get a shot. Yeah, my bow can do it, but I'm not gonna get that shot off,
Mm-hmm.
because by the time that I hear them, they've spotted me already. So my head is pretty much always on the ground for the most part when I'm walking in or out of anything, just so I can stay that quiet about it too. And yeah, like if it's rut or something like that, I'll grunt, I'll bleat a little bit as I'm walking around. I'll make a little bit of extra noise actually to kind of imitate a deer out in the woods and stuff. And I've had success doing that. Some really dumb young bucks like I've called 4 points in doing that type of stuff that they'll run up, see me run away, and I'll grunt and they'll run right back. And I'm like, you are just the dumbest thing in the woods right now.
Yeah, but you have fun doing it, don't you?
Right. Oh hell yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why we do it, and that's why we love it. But
Yeah.
do you got any goals going in? Like, I mean, we're halfway through the year, but do you have anything you're trying to get done this year, or like, hey, this is where I want to be?
Um Really, really not too much. But I have a son on the way right now, so I really want to be able to just have enough venison to kind of pretty much last through the winter for us this year.
Hmm.
Like I said, I buy a half cow every year and stuff like that too. But
Right.
my goal this year is just really see the difference in, okay, I'm in a tree now. Like, how can I use that knowledge that I have for the ground hunting in the tree? Like, how much of, a killer can I be? How much of an assassin can I be because I have this knowledge now? You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
actually, here in a couple weeks, too, I probably won't get to use it this year. I have an 80-pound longbow coming that I ordered 2 years ago. It was handmade for me um, out of yew wood from British Columbia, and then went to Norway. It got dried, handmade there. It's now back in British Columbia, and it'll be shipped to me here soon. But that is one of my goals too. Is I want to take a deer at very like a good distance with. I'm talking 50, 60, 70 yards with a longbow type of thing.
Well, I have a guy that's not too far from you. I'm sure that would be willing to help you out with learning some
Heck
of that
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah,
I'll definitely hook you guys up. But um, other than that, man, you're born and bred in Pennsylvania, and you're Pennsylvania blood, and you're in it to win it. You came back, you love it here. What are some things that you think that our state does really well, and then what are some things that you think maybe we can take a look at and possibly change?
yeah. Um, I think what we do pretty well here is public land around here, and that's I've hunted well multiple other states at this point, and
Hmm.
there's not nearly this amount of public land around here because Pennsylvania has a huge heritage in the timber industry, and they want to have public land available. And like I said, it's a $4 billion industry
Hmm.
that they're going to use hunters to help control the deer population to ensure that industry thrives.
Yep.
And that's the thing. I can walk out my back door. Like I shot two doe last year, 75 yards out my back door. My camp, we walk across the road, which is 30 yards from my camp. You're in the A&F.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing around here that hunting is so widely accessible around here. Um, I do think though that one thing we can look at, and I think Game Commission has kind of failed in this though, is getting the youth more involved. Where yeah, they tried to change the opening day to get people out on Saturday to get more people involved, and that pissed more people off than it made happier. And I think a lot of what lacks is, yeah, they have your education course, but like very few schools around have a trap league. Very few schools around have an archery league in them, and that's something to introduce and show people like, hey, you can learn this skill. It's not that hard, and you can pretty much never have to buy meat for the rest of your life if you get good at it.
Yeah. So I'd like to touch into that real quick.
Yeah,
So what I believe, and I don't want to make this a political thing, because
yeah,
it's unfortunately it is, but I don't want to get
right.
into our politics on stuff. But you are going to have a super hard time doing that
Oh
because
yeah.
of how anti-gun, anti self-sustaining, if you will, that the liberal agenda can be.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's not 50-50 in the school system.
Right.
And I mean, I know that that's not for every school district, but I will tell you, and I bet you if I set a poll out there, do you think your school district is more liberal minded than anything? I bet you that we'd get a heavier, a heavy yes. I think the
Oh yeah.
percentage would be highly. And when I was in high school, I went to the principal multiple times, vice principal also, and I begged for an archery team
Right.
because I knew going into that I was a good enough archer to make the team. And number two, I know what kind of scholarships you can get from that kind of stuff.
Right.
And they just wouldn't do it. They just no.
Right.
The principal at the time looked at me and said that'll never happen while I'm principal. Why? I mean, didn't even want to talk about it.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
said about a trap team, and he just laughed. I mean, laughed. And
Yep.
that's crazy. And the Penn Cambria School District where I'm at, they actually have a trap team now, but it has nothing to do with the school district. They just carry the name.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, man, because they had 120 kids sign up for last year.
Wow.
The first year they had 48, the second year they had 80 some, and now, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's that. And I hope my numbers aren't blown up or anything, but that's what I've been told. I've been told they have so many people that want
Yeah.
so many kids that want to sign up for that team that there's just too many.
Yep.
And fortunately, we're blessed enough to even have in our areas these gentlemen that are willing to take these kids under their wing. And that's just the way the outdoor community is, man. It speaks volumes to who we are. And
Oh yeah.
we know going into everything that, number one, we want to see them succeed because most of the time anymore, you, especially when you have kids or whatever, you want to see them kill or catch fish or whatever before you'd ever want to
Right.
do it yourself because it makes you feel better.
Yep.
And it's the same thing on that side of things for trap or archery leagues or
Oh yeah.
whatever. But man, I'm 100% on board with you. And if there's anything that you know of that I can help out with as far as like youth events or anything like that, if I can
Yeah.
bring DJing services or anything like that, let me know because I'm in, man.
Yeah.
That
Heck
is
yeah.
that's the shit. That's what I want to be part of. And that other thing I was going to bring up is, when I was growing up, there was always wild game feeds, and
Right.
I mean, I see them here and there, but it's not like I can remember going to them and thinking like, man, I'm eating rattlesnake. Like, how cool was that?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
alligator. I don't know, just exotic things that you're not used to. But and what's crazy is for us, oh, squirrel, yeah, squirrel. Like I eat that all the time.
Yeah.
Rabbit, I eat rabbit all the time. Some people are like, "Oh my god, I'm eating a rabbit. Oh my god, I'm eating a
Yeah.
squirrel, and this is really
Yep.
good." And well, yeah, it's really good. People been eating it for centuries.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it may not be mainstream stuff anymore. If you're not eating pork, beef, or chicken, then I guess you're eating some exotic animal, which is crazy. But
Right.
um, so yeah, I think that you make a great point, man, and I think that the Pennsylvania Game Commission has a lot of great land. I think that they do a pretty decent job, especially the groundskeeping part of everything. I think that them guys, they hit a home run. They
Yeah.
have some of the best lands around, and I see them guys constantly working, especially in my area. I see them all the time.
Oh
The
yeah.
game lands crews are all over the place, and I
Yep.
mean they're doing fires and they're doing. I mean, such a cool job. I just, honest to God, they're probably underpaid, but.
Oh yeah. And that's I love the people too that they always bitch about like like take take road crews for example, right?
Hmm.
Oh, those guys are just standing around while the other guy works.
Right.
Or, they're just being lazy, just wasting taxpayer dollars. And it's like, listen, you do the same damn thing if you had that job. I don't want to hear you bitching because you know what? Everybody is lazy. And you're going to get the same check whether you stand there or you do the work. And I guarantee you, I'd catch you standing there someday too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's same thing with Game Commission too. People bitch about them. And it's like, listen, Pennsylvania has close to 1 million hunters.
yeah.
Try to manage all of them and manage all the millions. I think last I knew, PA had close to 2.2 or 2.3 million acres of public land that you can hunt on top of the 500,000 acres of national forest, right?
Hmm.
Imagine trying to manage that. That's bigger than some states in the whole U.S. It's like People just they want something to bitch about at this point.
They do, and people will never be happy, and that's just the way it is. And
Right.
the other bad thing is, people just love to watch the world burn. So when shit isn't going good, oh well, screw them or whatever. And
Right.
and it's like, no, man, like if there's something you can do to pitch in and help out, then that's what you should not
Right.
do. But
Exactly.
hey, whatever. Misery loves company. I tell everybody that all the time, and it's the truest. It's the truest thing that you've ever been part of and or experienced. But man, this conversation has been really good. It's been really awesome, and
Yeah.
I kind of want to end it on a good note between us, and
Yeah.
um, this has been awesome, man. There's so many more rabbit holes and stuff we could go down,
Oh yeah.
and I look forward to having you back on here. We'll probably do after deer season, or maybe we can do a special together or something for some cooking.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
this is awesome, man. I want you to promote your brand and yourself before you go, man. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yep.
Follow some of the shit you're doing, and of course, you got recipes on there,
Oh yeah.
and they can get a hold of you if you're willing to help them out or whatever with their journey, and just promote yourself, man.
Yeah, man. So, like like we kind of covered in the beginning, I'm Gunnar Emberg. I am the Hungry Huntsman. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook is at right now. We are working on a ton of stuff for a website, doing collabs with other people. A lot of my recipes, you can just reach out to me and I will send them to you. Or I have monthly ones that post on Harvesting Nature as well. They are a community of kind of like-minded people where we really enjoy cooking with wild game, and we do the unique stuff that you're not going to see out in public with this. We're not just doing burgers and stuff.
Hmm.
A lot of my recipes are on there as well. We have big plans for the future too, guys. It's going to get pretty crazy around here pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's already, man. You're already taking off. It's awesome to watch, and I'm glad that I got to be a little bit part of it. And this is fun, man. Let's keep it going. I want to watch you succeed, and hey, let's get some good blood trails here this year.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. We'll hopefully catch up with you soon.
Heck yeah.
You have finished another episode of the Keystone Chronicles podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. I can't wait to cook some of Gunnar's recipes. I have started on a couple. They're very good. I think he's doing a wonderful job. Please go out and support him. And also, please support this show. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you soon.